Mark Bishop Show. Truly like a box of chocolates. You never know who you're going to meet. From business, lifestyle, and fun. Here's Mark.
Well, folks, we know that wildfire risk is increasing due to several factors, such as more homes and communities in wildfire-prone areas and changing environmental conditions that result in wildfires igniting more easily, spreading more rapidly, and, indeed, burning more intensely. In fact, a new 2025 report by Totality says nearly 2.6 million homes in the western U.S. face moderate or greater wildfire risk with a combined reconstruction cost value of $1.3 trillion. It's a lot of bickies. The massive January wildfires in Los Angeles County are the latest example of how conflagration can severely devastate communities. The Eaton and Palisades wildfires damaged or destroyed 18,298 structures and tragically killed 30 people, making it the costliest insured wildfire loss event in U.S. history. Wow. So, Karen Collins, my guest, Vice President at American Property Casualty Insurance Association, along with Ann D. Cope, who is a Ph.D., P.E. Chief Engineer at Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. They're my special guests on this episode on The Mark Bishop Show. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, your take on these large urban conflagration fires are occurring in more states. You know, for example, the 2020 Labor Day fires in Oregon, 2021 Marshall Fire in Colorado, and then, of course, the Lahaina fire back in 23 in Maui. Massive fires ignited and spread because of dangerous factors that came together. What are some of those?
Right. So anytime you get dense population and you also have a drought condition and high winds, you have a real risk of a wildfire event. It's happened on the East Coast, the middle of the country, the West Coast, Hawaii. It can happen all it takes is the drought conditions, the spark, and then the wildfire can get into the dense urban area. And sadly, that's when we see so many structures get burned.
It's pretty sad, really. I guess in some areas we would never think that fires like that would be possible. But those embers go a long way, don't they? They go ahead of the fire.
They do. Those strong winds do two things. They push the embers well ahead of the fire and cause spot fires in our neighborhoods. And the high winds can ground the air assets that are trying to fight the fire. So it makes it doubly worse. And it's those windborne embers that are the biggest threat to our communities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, you guys are the experts. You know, tell my listeners, if you would, just some of the actions that they can take to protect their own property, to get out and actually do it. What do you recommend?
Right. Absolutely. So there's three things that I describe to people. The first one is usually pretty easy. You need to make sure that you have a Class A roof. Now, the good news is most Americans do have a Class A roof. Talking about metal, tile, asphalt shingles, most of those are Class A roofs. Mm-hmm. If you have a wood shake roof, you need to take a pause and think about when you might be able to replace with a Class A roof. Now, the second thing that people can do is check your vents. The vents that go into your attic and your crawl space, they allow the breeze to come in and cool places down. They also allow those windborne embers to get in and then light the house from the inside out.
Wow.
So you want to replace your vents. Yeah, it happens more often than you know, because everybody has stuff in their attic, right? So if the embers get in and light something, that's a terrible danger. You want to replace your vents with ember-resistant vents, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you can get some metal screening, and as long as it's an 1/8 inch of a mesh or tighter, you can use that screening to prevent the embers from coming in. That's a real great do-it-yourself step that you can do. And then the third one, and this is a really critical piece that people need to pay attention to, you need to have a safety zone right around the outside of your structure, the first 5 feet. You don't want things that can burn right there next to your home to light the home on fire. So you don't want wood mulch, you don't want wood fencing, you don't want to store your firewood right next to your house. You don't want a bush right next to your house because those can catch the embers, light, and then catch your house on fire. So you want a 5-foot safety zone around your house. Move all those beautiful bushes. Just move them away from your house so you have that wildfire safety.
Wow. Tell you what, there's a lot of people going to say, oh, I'm not going to move my bushes and this and that. But, well, how much is your home? You know, over the last 5 years, inflation has increased the cost of repairing and rebuilding homes. Construction labor has increased 36%, and building materials are up 42%. And this is the source, by the way, is A.P.C.I.A. That's the analysis of U.S. Bureau of Labor. Karen, I want to ask you, how can you prevent underinsurance and ensure that, you know, my finances are protected before a wildfire?
Absolutely. For many people, your home is generally your biggest asset. You want to have that financial safety net in place before a disaster hits so that you have the appropriate resources to go ahead and rebuild. And I'll give you a few different tips. As you mentioned, we want to prevent underinsurance. As you noted, inflation is so much higher, and you don't want to be caught without the appropriate coverage limit. So what we've often encouraged as tip number one, do those annual insurance checkups. Don't leave it as a set it and forget it with insurance. You've got to go and have those conversations with your agent or your insurance company. Talk about those policy limits. Talk about what coverage is in your policy annually. Do you have the right square footage and materials for your home? Did you do home improvements? Maybe a lot of people didn't stay at home during pandemic. We're doing, additions or upgrades to their kitchen, granite counters. Like, make sure that's reflected in your policy. And then also talk about what optional features might be available to you. There's things like extended replacement cost coverage that gives you an extra layer of financial protection when demand and costs spike after disaster. If everyone's fighting over that same materials and labor, they can actually go up even more than what they are even right now that I just described. So that's a great cushion. In Seattle, I think we're seeing a lot of communities that are requiring things like new solar panel installations. So if you have to rebuild, you might have to comply with this. And if that's an additional cost, you might want to consider increasing your ordinance and law coverage, which gives you additional money to help comply with new requirements in building. And then also what we're seeing with a lot of these wildfires is that you may not be out for a year. It might be 2 years. It might be 3 years because of just how severe the damage is. And so additional living expense coverage, you might consider increasing that cushion of funding to make sure if you're out longer, you have enough money for that. So those are kind of the first set of tips. Tip 2, know exactly what your policy covers. There's different types of policies. There's those that cover replacement cost coverage to replace all your items at current market price. And then there's others that might be actual cash value that look at only the amount after they take depreciation based on kind of the age and condition for older items. So there's very distinct differences. You want to know what your policy covers. And then another tip is if you have folks that have paid off their homes, maybe they're retired, whatever the case may be, you don't want them to be caught without coverage. The tip 4 is make sure they're maintaining insurance. We know that there's a lot of cost pressure right now on a number of things, insurance included, but you want to make sure they continue to carry that homeowner's policy that if the worst does happen, they do have the ability to rebuild the home. And the last tip, for our renters, we don't want to forget that. Make sure you're getting renter's insurance. We sadly see renters can lose everything in a fire, just like homeowners. Yeah. And while you may not own the structure, all of your personal belongings in that home is something you want to have the financial cushion for also. And also the additional living expenses if you are displaced because the home is lost. And the thing with renters is actually very affordable prices for renters insurance. You can often just bundle it with your auto policy with great discounts. So have that conversation. Don't be caught off guard as well. So those are some great tips just to prevent underinsurance or lack of coverage.
Yeah, very good, because people tend to forget they do home renovations, don't upgrade. You know, what I get out of this is that, look, come every summer or when it's potential fire season, ring your insurance agent. They get paid. They're there to look after you. All right? Give them a call and say, hey, I want to talk to you about my home. I want to talk to you about my, valuables at home, my inventory. I want to make sure I'm covered. I want to make sure I've upgraded. Whatever. Have a chat with them. It doesn't hurt. And in fact, there's 2 sites, folks. Get a pen. More information. There's a lot more info for you on these 2 websites to go to. www.IBHS.org wildfire ready, all one word. Okay, and the other one is www.apci.org/wildfire. Two important sites there to really have a look at. Sit down with pajamas, cup of joe, as I say, and have a good study. My thanks to Karen Collins and to Andy Cope this morning for coming on the Mark Bishop Show. Very good advice, ladies. Thank you so much. You do a good job.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Join us again for another episode of The Mark Bishop Show. It's a production of Mark Bishop Media.